Now, I appreciate you checking out this video. Before I continue, I want you to go to theultimatejetguide.com, where I've put together a full guide for jet buyers like yourself. From an owner's perspective, what are the top 3 things owners neglect? And I guess I'll kind of pivot a little bit and say the top 3 things that an owner would neglect that as a buyer I should look out for. And then if it's any different, or maybe we just frame it this way, like if you do own a plane, don't neglect these as well. I don't know if there's 2 different things, but I would definitely like to talk to, what are the 3 safety items that owners will neglect from a buyer's perspective, what we should be looking out for?
I would say proper record keeping, proper maintenance, and keeping up with the new technologies coming out. One of the best things about an aircraft is if you can maintain, say, the avionics systems and the newer technologies in your aircraft, that'll drastically set it apart from the other aircraft born in the same era. Keeping up with proper maintenance kind of goes without explanation. And when I say proper maintenance, I don't just mean following that one inspection, but using it from a reputable company that is going to maintain the regulations, maintain the logbooks, maintain the record keeping, which was also the last piece. The records of an aircraft are the life of that aircraft. Okay, you can say it is whatever it is, but if you don't have the paperwork to back that up, the certifications, the regulations, the proper documentation, it's almost worthless. I've heard in the past of aircraft just not being able to be sold because the documentation and the records don't match up at all, and it's too high of a risk for most people who are knowledgeable in this industry to touch it. And those aircraft end up sitting on the ramp for years and years and years because their documentation wasn't maintained in the right way. And that being said, like I said, maintenance. Maintaining the aircraft in the proper way is just as important as maintaining your documentation in the proper way. Doesn't matter if if you didn't maintain your engines the right way, but you have the paperwork saying you did, or vice versa. You need those two go hand in hand all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, and with the records, like if you're an owner, please digitize your records. Okay. Please scan them in. Okay. Or send them to a company, get them scanned in, digitize the records. It makes a huge difference. And especially the valuation, because it's perception, right? Like, well, this guy didn't scan his records or he didn't put them into digital. Like, how on top of it is this guy, because we're in 2023 and why don't I have digital records? So I think that's important. Check out maintenance tracking programs, whether it's JSSI, formerly Sierra Track, SESCOM, Traxol, whatever you want to use. When you yes, Excel spreadsheet is a step in the right direction, but it still has a perception. When I hand a buyer an Excel spreadsheet, from Bob's Garage, versus, or I love it when it's, oh, we have proprietary software. It's like, okay, but like, is there a backbone, or are you like a constant or someone who's been there for a while that, okay, you deserve your proprietary software? I think that's important with the records. Speak. Do you have anything to say about like records or digitizing them, or?
Well, I would definitely say a sleek little thumb drive looks a lot better than a coffee-stained binder that's fallen apart. So, yeah, digitizing your records and also making a backup copy of the digital records, because if you lose that one thumb drive, that's a very expensive thumb drive to lose. So, yeah, making sure your records are attainable, accessible, and easy to use and navigate.
And that's why it's important, to your point, like to have a support team on the maintenance side, because again, Bob's Garage, he might be great at turning wrenches, but is he good at, relaying the information of what he did into a way that, like you said, it's systematized, it's easy to follow? Because I hate turning logbooks and like, I can't find anything, it's not marked. Like, where's the hot sections? Where's the overhauls? And with a lot of these tracking programs, it's garbage in, garbage out. An Excel spreadsheet, and some of the programs, like, they don't require a third party to go through it. That's why some maintenance tracking programs will cost more, because they will actually have a third party kind of verify, hey, is this really what was done? And you can have more confidence in those records in one platform versus another, or an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, when it comes to your record keeping, the investment is worth the money. It's worth an extra few dollars to make sure the records are maintained properly. And like you said with the maintenance company, do they have a project manager working through this project, or is it just hoping on the reliance and the knowledge of one person? Do you have a QA team actually double checking these records and maintaining them properly? The bigger the aircraft, the bigger the investment, and the bigger the team that should be in place to support it.
Yeah, for sure. What about with maintenance? What are one thing I always kind of, maybe you can speak to this, but I always kind of mention to people is, this idea of an AD and an SB. I mean, obviously the airworthiness directives are something that we want to make sure that's all complied with and comply with appropriately. And then we look at service bulletins, the SBs, that are kind of just, hey, by the way, there's some things that are going on, whether it's, hey, the seal around the fuel cap, just watch out for it because we've been noticing that they've been corroding and it's causing a problem. So, can you speak to anything from the safety perspective in terms of airworthiness directives and safety bulletins?
I'll always do what's required of you. So, and hands down, the first thing up, if it's required, make sure you're maintaining it. And if it's not required, understand that it was researched to the point that they put it on paper for a reason. So if it's getting
Mm,
to the point of a service bulletin, even if it's not required for you to do so, there's a reason it came down like that, and make sure you're paying proper
wow.
attention to it. At least get it vetted by somebody. If it's some like with our cars, if it's some weird recall or something like that that doesn't really make sense, and it already says in black and white it's not affecting the value or the operation, I understand that. But once again, a lot of the service bulletins we've seen come down in the past do end up becoming something important, way important in the future. So make sure you give it your due diligence. Make sure it's vetted by somebody reputable, so you actually understand what's going on with it. We've talked this whole podcast on knowledge. Make sure you understand what is being said to you and what you're reading. Because believe me, if somebody took the time, especially at the FAA or the OEM, to write it down on paper and put it out to every owner and say, hey, you should do this, I think that's worthy enough to pay special attention to it.
Yeah, and a lot of I think owners don't understand there that it's, the maintenance manual for your jet was handed down, off the mountaintop, received from above, and they have the maintenance manual, but that maintenance manual is outdated almost from the time that it gets printed. Once people start flying it around, they start finding stuff out, and that's where the airworthiness directives comes from. They're an update to the manual. The service bulletins, they're update to the manual. So your maintenance is not, just this one book. And so I think it's important for owners to recognize that because you can ask your mechanic, hey, did any ADs or SBs come out since my last annual or since my last, C check, whatever it is, and they'll tell you. So, or if they look at you quizzically, you could be like, okay, really, dude? Like, are you staying on top of, you want a mechanic that's staying on top of the ADs and the SBs. So that's just the component that, I think some people just think there's a maintenance manual and that's just it for the end of time, but really it gets updated on a regular basis.
Very often, and that's a good point you bring up. Are you the sole owner maintaining your subscription to your maintenance manual? Being an owner, is the maintenance organization you're going through maintaining their subscriptions as well? I mean, if you're seeing something that says copyright 1997, you might want to check in with them and say, hey, is this the current materials we're supposed to be working off of? Because I know with us, we have subscriptions to obviously Gulfstream and Embraer and Bombardier and all the OEMs we work with through Constant. And I know our quality manager is always continuously updating our subscriptions and things like that because they get updated all the time. And you need to understand it's
Hmm.
not your Ford Taurus out in the driveway that once it's built it's good to go. Things change all the time. And I think we're even seeing that in the automotive side is you almost don't get a manual in the car anymore. It's an app you put on your phone, and I think that's where aviation's going as well. Is the manuals are continuously updated. You always want to be linked to them in electronic form, so you always have the current copy of them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about like electronics. Let's talk about that technology real quick, and just kind of speaking into that. I mean, owners don't necessarily understand. Like, you get technology, but you also have subscriptions that come to it. Your charts and your databases, so that's going to be an ongoing expense. Um, but with your avionics too, like when you're upgrading, thinking forward compatible, thinking ahead of what you might only think that you need like a little bit of an upgrade, but by putting that investment into better technology, it could be a game changer. I mean, even just Wi-Fi, like that is something that maybe 5 years ago it's like, oh, it'd be nice if my plane had Wi-Fi. Now, it's almost becoming a necessity that in the air you need Wi-Fi, and not just this, text and email Wi-Fi like what used to be, on pagers and stuff, but streaming and all that kind of stuff. I mean, looking ahead, I think the technology in the cabin is important. like with the Wi-Fi stuff, and obviously in the cockpit with your GPS, your navigation, your comms, etc. So you have better situational awareness is important as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I think anybody who loves electronics in their own home, they kind of have their name brand loyalties. They don't just want the cheapest knockoff possible. They stick with their name
Yep.
brands. There's a reason for that, especially when it comes to aircraft avionics and aircraft technology. Those names have built themselves to where they are today because for a lot of them, you can almost upgrade the software over time, and it's a pretty big window of when you're going to need to actually upgrade the component, which is going to be your more expensive overhaul. They have built their components and systems to be able to be upgraded by the avionics technicians at a lower cost, and then as the time does come, hey, we're going to swap boxes, we're going to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and again, to your point, you said the avionics technicians. I mean, that's a whole other team. I mean, all of these are a different team. Your records team, your guys that are actually turning the wrenches and the maintenance, and your avionics, your technical team. They're all different teams doing. There's a lot to it, and like, yeah, you can kind of get bogged down if you're looking at a smaller jet. You don't need all of these team members, but it's again important to know so that if you want that, go find a shop or a team that's going to do all that.
And pretty much
So
anything you can look at on that aircraft can have a dedicated team. One of the teams I love the most, I love walking through our interior shops. They do brilliant work on cabinetry and leather and upholstery, and actually seeing an aircraft getting pushed out for RTS, having an aircraft detailing company come in and do the proper cleaning of that aircraft and buff it out. And honestly, and cleaning an aircraft is one thing that nobody wants to do, but these guys are so dedicated to their profession and their craft. I follow one on social media. It's wonderful to see him going, "Hey, this was a red wine spill, and I got it all out, and it looks beautiful now."
oh,
And to
sweet.
see the pride in their work down to something of cleaning the jet. It's not just the maintenance of the jet and building the jet and perfecting all the nice odds and ends of it, but taking pride in the cleanliness of the jet and the mirror finish on the chrome. I work with guys all the times protecting the jets. There's guys that make wonderful, unique custom covers for each component of the jet so it doesn't get damaged during maintenance, and they have pride in their work. And I think one thing that if you are a new operator, one thing I would tell you coming into this industry, you will see is that almost every hand that touches your aircraft or your documentation, that person has true pride in what this industry really holds and the product that we're putting out. We all love putting out a quality product, and it's wonderful to see it.
I do agree with that. Aviation has been a wonderful breath of fresh air from other industries that I've been in. That people who have been in here for a while, like they are genuinely passionate about aviation and want what's best and want to see the continuation and the flourishing of the future of aviation for sure.